The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Well, good morning to you, and good to have you with us on this Monday morning. I'm Chris Burton in for Alex Fisher. She is Elena Rusk in for Maddie Jansen. They are enjoying some time off.
Making headlines around the nation, we begin this morning following several mass shootings across the country. At least one person killed and several others injured following a shooting in Harlem just hours ago. Police responded to reports of several people shot shortly after midnight near the Madison Avenue Bridge. In total, 9 people were struck by the gunfire, and all of the victims were taken to local hospitals. One of those people, a 21-year-old man, was later pronounced dead. The other victims expected to survive. Police say they do not know whether there was one gunman or potentially several. No suspect descriptions have been released, and the cause of this shooting is still under investigation.
Well, this morning's shooting comes after chaos and carnage in our nation's capital. A 15-year-old boy has died, and 3 others were shot at a Juneteenth celebration in Washington, D.C. last night. Authorities say an unpermitted event, a festival celebrating go-go music, drew a large crowd in the street in the northwest part of the city. Just before 8 p.m., a person fired into the crowd with police clearly present, killing the teen. The 3 surviving victims, including a Metropolitan Police officer who was shot in the leg, were stabilized at local hospitals. The gunfire came after the festival crowd fled the area earlier in the day for an unknown reason, trampling several people. Police say the lone suspect is not in custody.
Also over the weekend, a family barbecue in Texas turning deadly. 2 people killed, 5 more wounded after a drive-by shooting in San Antonio. That happened just after 10 Saturday night as a family gathered for a barbecue in the front yard of their home. Authorities say the suspect pulled up in a vehicle and fired several shots, hitting 5 men and 2 women. The 2 men died at the scene. Authorities say several children were inside the home at the time of the shooting, but none of them were hit by the gunfire. The suspect has yet to be identified, and the conditions of the remaining survivors is unknown. Now we will have more on the state of gun violence in America now.
Data from the Gun Violence Archive shows the United States has seen more mass shootings in 2022 than days of the year. This is a map of all gun deaths in the country this year, and this map shows everywhere the country has seen a mass shooting. The database shows at least 275 mass shootings so far in 2022. That's 1.6 shootings every day. And this problem has ramped up over the past few years. The Gun Violence Archive reports 269 mass shootings in 2014. Last year's total, 692. The one silver lining, we're not quite on track to outpace last year's death toll. But after tragedies ranging from an elementary school massacre in Uvalde, Texas, to a supermarket shooting in Buffalo, New York, and hundreds more, America's mass shooting problem seems to show no signs of slowing down.
All right, and making some news headlines around the state. A man is dead after a small plane crash near Porterville Saturday. The Tulare County Sheriff's Office saying that plane crashed just a few minutes after taking off from the Porterville Airport. Natalie Vera with our sister station KC in Fresno has more.
Charred ground and debris marked the spot where a plane crashed on Saturday afternoon near Porterville.
When we arrived on scene, we did find a Cessna twin-engine plane that had crashed in that area. Unfortunately, the pilot did pass away.
The Tulare County Sheriff's Office is not releasing any more details about the pilot at this time, but they say he was the only one on board.
We know that the pilot took off around 2:46. And they lost control, or they lost communication with him around 2:55. And that's when we received the emergency call.
Multiple agencies responded to the incident and will remain on scene until investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board arrive.
We have to wait for the NTSB to show up, and they won't be probably showing up until tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. So we'll be there securing the scene, making sure that no one, tampers with the wreckage, because that's essential for the NTSB to kind of figure out what went wrong.
According to the Federal Aviation Administration, the multi-engine Cessna was traveling to the Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport in Wisconsin.
That was Natalie Vera reporting. Talk of a new city ordinance meant to stop the sale of tobacco products to anyone under 21 continues, and soon the city council could act upon it. 17's Christian Galeno has more.
Put that money back.
Then I can send you, boss.
Deterring the sale of tobacco products to minors has been steadily dropping in Kern County, but city leaders in the Safer Neighborhoods and Community Relations Committee think more can be done by adopting a city permit to sell tobacco, a move inspired by a county ordinance with one goal in mind:
how easily access tobacco products are to our youth.
Under Kern County's tobacco retailers permit ordinance, tobacco vendors must pay $135 annually to the county public health department for a retailer's permit. Additional yearly monetary penalties for any violations committed are incurred. These violations are caught by underage county decoys employed by the county health department.
We send them into tobacco facilities that are permitted by our department every year to see if they're able to access tobacco products. And unfortunately, many times they are able to purchase those tobacco products.
According to data from the County Public Health Department, at the program's start in fiscal year 2016-2017, 135 violations were reported. The next fiscal year, that number dropped below 100 violations, and in fiscal year 2018-2019, only 35 violations were reported. Shopkeepers that sell tobacco products say they don't mind another annual fee.
Because people going to need the money to stop those illegal tobacco sales. We are happy to help.
But for other shopkeepers, they believe current rules are more than enough.
For the minors, below 21, we don't sell, right? Whatever the rule is, the law is, that's okay. It's going good, right?
Yeah, well, this is still very much up in the air, and council members Arias and Gonzalez did request that the conversation around this ordinance be continued at the next city council meeting. For now, reporting in downtown Bakersfield, Christian Galeno, 17 News.
All right, well, wildfire season now all year long in California, but the Golden State not the only area at significant risk for this kind of destruction. Millions live in a special kind of place called the wildland urban interface, and it's putting our homes and lives in harm's way. Chase Kane explains.
Now at 11, the rush to escape, families forced to grab everything and go.
Think wildfires are just a West Coast thing?
Bush fire that has begun destroying homes in Orange County.
Actually, 1 in 3 Americans live in at-risk areas. Many just don't know it.
A bit frustrating from my standpoint because so many people feel like, oh, that's just a forest problem. Oh, that's a forest fires, but yet we forget that they're happening right here.
Brett with Idaho Firewise pointed to a hilltop outside Boise where the tabletop fire showed the risk of wildfire in the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, basically where development meets nature. Across the country, more than 2/3 of homes and businesses destroyed by wildfires are in the WUI. Think of the Marshall Fire in Colorado, 1,000 homes burned in the WUI. 2016 fire in East Tennessee, 2,000 homes burned in the WUI. Or the Camp Fire, nearly 14,000 homes burned in the WUI.
People would be really surprised at what zone they live in. It's not just the folks that are up in the brush. It's the folks that are, if you look at a map of Boise, the entire north end is in an ember zone. And it's up to a mile away from the brush.
Brittany is talking about homes that people think are safer because they're not at the edges of the WUI, but they're still close enough where flying embers can start a new fire. That's something that happens often when winds are driving wildfires. And it's important to note that America's housing crunch is driving this problem.
When you have restrictions on building density in urban cores and a place is growing, it needs more housing for people to live in. Okay, where will that housing go? And oftentimes I think it ends up being built sort of more around the edges of an urban area that are the places that tend to be at higher fire risk. They're in this sort of like intermix, closer to wildlands and so more exposed to hazard.
At riskfactor.com, a site from the nonprofit First Street Foundation, you can search your address for your wildfire risk. And that's important because risk impacts your ability to get or even keep insurance.
What I have been experiencing in Idaho is getting phone calls from homeowners saying they have been dropped. More and more of those phone calls are happening, and this is where they're headed, I believe, is they're just going to, we can't afford to do this, and very difficult to try to go find a new company.
It's important to note that beyond California or Texas, the states with some of the most houses in the WUI are Florida, North Carolina, even Pennsylvania. First Street Foundation counted nearly 72 million homes all across America with at least some level of fire risk. And that means more Americans need to start creating defensible space around their homes and have an evacuation plan. We've got resources for both at lx.com.
Chase Kane reporting. Your time now 5:36, and hundreds of people turned out over the weekend for a candlelight vigil honoring 2 Southern California police officers slain last week while investigating a report of a possible stabbing. El Monte Police Department officers Joseph Santana and Michael Paredes were fatally shot Tuesday outside a suburban motel east of Los Angeles. They were memorialized Saturday at El Monte Civic Center by city residents, community leaders, family members, and fellow police officers. Acting Police Chief Ben Lowry praised the fallen officers for their character and bravery and said they would not be forgotten. A coroner's report said the gunman who killed the men died by suicide.
Now to some headlines around town. Today marks the observance of the Juneteenth federal holiday, when federal offices and other buildings will be closed. Yesterday, June 19th, was a day to reflect and celebrate freedom across the country and here at home. 17's Marco Torres reports.
Community celebrations for Juneteenth launched this weekend. Hundreds of people flocked to Yokuts Park in Bakersfield to celebrate Juneteenth a day early, enjoying live music, food, and more. The Bakersfield chapter of the NAACP organized the event, honoring Black history.
Juneteenth to me is to celebrate the freedom of African American people.
And I feel like Juneteenth, for me at least, is to show like my freedom and be proud of my skin color and who I am as a person.
The local NAACP also hosted a 3-on-3 basketball tournament held at Dignity Health Sports Complex Sunday.
I think it's really good to attach fun to this holiday, especially it being just now a federal holiday. This is fun, it was really necessary, really to attach some fun to the holiday. It's just a really good fit.
Many people say Juneteenth celebrates progress made towards racial equality in America, but Bakersfield's NAACP president says the fight against racism is far from over.
1865 is not when racism stopped. We still had Jim Crow laws, we still had issues, and even to this day, we still try to create ways to even the playing field within our community. So when we say it was so long ago, we're talking about the 60s. A lot of people are still alive when those things were happening.
It's a beautiful thing to come out and see people of all colors come together and recognize and celebrate this day in history. Hopefully one of these days it'll be recognized throughout the United States rather than only 10 states.
From Bakersfield, Marco Torres, 17 News.
Well, also over the weekend, a celebration of the LGBTQ community in honor of Pride Month. Oleander Pride hosted its 3rd annual Pride event at Beale Park last weekend, uniting members of the LGBTQ community and allies for a trip through the park in downtown Bakersfield. This year's theme was Color the Neighborhood. The group plans to hold more events this year as Pride Month continues. We will keep you posted as we learn more.
And now to education news. Congressional child nutrition waivers, which provided students with free lunch, are expected to end at the end of this month. A federal waiver that made school breakfast and lunch free to all students during the pandemic, regardless of their family's income, is set to expire on June 30th. Experts foresee a crisis for families if the program ends as scheduled, and cafeterias are already experiencing obstacles due to supply chain interruptions. But some states, such as here in California, have passed universal free school meal programs, while others have introduced legislation proposing them. Advocates are hoping Congress will take sweeping action across the nation. Meanwhile, all Kern County Library branches continue to offer free lunches through these hot summer months. The meals are free for kids aged 2 to 18, and the library offers fun, free activities to keep the kids entertained while they're fed. Families also encouraged to sign up for the Summer Reading Challenge to earn prizes and food coupons, while also bridging the summer learning gap. You can learn more at kerncountylibrary.org.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.